All right. So the idea today is to just talk about how to facilitate engaging and inclusive and dynamic and fun workshops. So,
Nice.
hi Mary, thanks for joining us. Can you
I'm
hear
here.
me? Are you with us? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Awesome. Cool. And so my hope was that I really want to answer specific questions that you all have about this, because there's a lot. I mean, I do trainings on facilitation, that last days and weeks. So I really want to hit the sweet spots of what you actually need or having trouble with. And then I also just want to provide some really basic tips and tricks and tools and stuff that could help anybody and everybody. But I'd love to hear if we can, there's just three of us. So maybe go and just say your name. I mean, we all know each other, but what are you curious about? What do you want to know in regards to facilitation? Anything in regards to this topic? What do you want to know specifically so that I can pinpoint it? Or another frame of that, or where are you feeling challenged or stuck? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So what questions or concerns or challenges are you having? So who wants to start? April, do you have something?
Not yet.
Okay. Mary, what about you?
Well, I think still a lot about the workshop flow as I'm kind
Workshop
of
flow.
preparing for thinking about how much the timing of things, how much to do pair shares, how much to do kind of like a warm up and all that stuff. And if I'm having food, how much time to let them just mingle and have food and network, all those little things.
All those little things. Okay, great. So flow, outline, putting that all together, having it make sense.
Yeah, and having it flow and exercise that is fun. The interactive exercises.
Right. Well, it's fun because you're doing it. So I'm moving because my face was getting super washed out. So I'm relocating. That's okay. This might be a little bit better. Welcome to my room, everybody. Okay.
Molly,
So perfect. Yeah. Sophie, what's up? Go for it.
Yeah. So I think for me, it's that part about the teaching part, any part where, say at the beginning, where I'm actually providing information. Not so much, I feel I know how to facilitate the participatory things,
right?
But I'm more nervous about the bits where I have to plan a bit that I'm just speaking or teaching.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Those specific parts. And are you wondering how to make those pieces more engaging, or is it a confidence piece of trusting yourself that you know what you're saying? And communicating that with confidence and conviction.
Yeah, there might be a bit about that, about what the why is of why we're doing certain parts where we are teaching or just telling someone out of all the things we know, how we choose the bits that we are sure are the most important in that setting to teach specifically. So I guess it's about that discernment.
Right. And so the piece I'm hearing there is again, there's so much that you could teach or talk about, or how do you choose the pieces that are the most important or most essential?
Yeah, that's what I'm finding, is that I want to just include every single thing about the topic into my workshop.
Right.
And how do I make it simple and trust that that's enough?
Right. Cool. Great question. We can talk about that for sure. I love it. Okay. April, do you have something, or?
I don't know. Because I'm not in workshop mode right now. I'm trying to. The only thing that I might be curious about, to reference when I'm ready, is different resources that have different activities that you can do that might be in alignment with the topic that you're trying to teach. I've been buying a bunch of team building books just to get ideas, and then tweaking them for whatever my workshop might be. And more specifically, I think workshops that don't have, or workshop activities that don't require a lot of materials, right? Because I think ideally I'd want to take something on the road, and how can you do something with as few materials as possible? Yeah,
cool. That would be something fun to put together of 20 20 awesome interactivities or interactive activities for workshop leaders or something like that. That where you don't need any supplies at all. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so where do I want to start? Okay, I'm going to start with where Sophie was coming from because I think that this ties into what everybody's actually saying is like, how do I know if the thing that I'm doing is the right thing in the right order, that I'm saying, that I'm giving the right content? And there's a lot, like, this is where I get stuck all the time of having this, like, having to get it right piece. And that's the whole, like, if I knew how to get it right, then I would just go and do all of this stuff. But the thing about facilitation in particular, and I think just like speaking and coaching and all of the work that we're doing, is that we want to have all of this clarity in order to take action, but we need to take action in order to get clarity. So I might not know how an activity is going to go if I've never done it before. So I have to be willing to, like, I have to be willing to just put it out there and go for it and learn from that, knowing and like developing that muscle of self-trust. And this for me has been huge of whatever the content I choose, this is the right content today. And if I do this workshop in 2 weeks, it might be different based on how it lands. And so thinking about like, what are those key pieces? I think there's a mindset piece of what if I wasn't trying to get it right? And this is really tough, but I appreciated what Emily has been sharing. And I actually talked to Peter Scott the other day, which was like so wild to reconnect with him. He was our speaker at the retreat. And what he was saying, and what I was like, I'm worried about this and I'm worried about this, and like getting these calls right and having the right workshop title or content. And he's like, you know what? You're making this all about you, instead of making it about the audience. Right. And anytime we spin it, like from, I want to get it right, to like, I want my audience to have the best possible experience. And really for me, in my workshops, in my speaking, I'm always starting with setting an intention. So what is my intention? And like, intention doesn't, like, again, like even letting go of getting that part right. Like, well, how do you set an intention, and what's a right intention? And just being so caught up in the rightness of things versus in the doing of it. Like, the only way I'm going to figure out what works is if I just do it. And one of the mindset pieces that I tell myself all the time is, even my worst workshop could change someone's life. Even my worst activity could be someone's like light bulb moment, like, oh crap, that didn't go well. And, you know, whenever I remember it was before giving a really big talk, like it was the first time I was getting paid like $2,500 to speak for 45 minutes. I was like, oh my God, I hope I don't mess this up. And I hope they're not disappointed and all this stuff. And I really had to wrap my head around, like, you know, again, what are the things that I want to say? Like, what's the most important? And I was like getting I had so much anxiety around it, versus just like, you know, just to show up, to share, to shine, to know that like the best thing that you can do is to like be you. Oh, okay. I was going somewhere with that. And I was talking to someone like about my biggest fear with giving that talk. Like, okay, I'm in front of 600 people. What is my biggest fear? What is the worst possible thing that could happen? And I said, the worst possible thing that could happen is I totally forget what I was going to say. Like, I'm on stage, I don't have my notes in front of me, and I totally lose my train of thought. And she's like, well, what would you do? And in that moment, like, what I made up was, I would say, you know, that time you were giving a presentation and you totally, completely forgot what you were going to say? That's happening right now. And then I was going into this whole bit about, you know, leadership, because it was a student leadership conference. Leadership isn't about being perfect, but it's about showing up and giving it everything you have, and acknowledging when you mess up and when you make mistakes. Like, that is what leadership is. Leadership isn't walking around acting in like you have it all together, like you have everything figured out, like that you don't need any support and that you never make mistakes and you have to be perfect. And so I figured, like, okay, what was my biggest fear and how would I confront that or deal with that in the moment? Like, what is your biggest fear about doing an exercise or an activity that you've never done before? It's like, oh, that's not going to go well. But like, what does going well even mean, right? And like, again, I think cultivating that self-trust means that you just have to, the more you do something, the more you learn to trust yourself. But that's the hard part. At the beginning, it's like, I have no evidence to trust myself because I've never done this before, right? Is any of this landing for people?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
okay. Because I think it's both, it's a blend of the mindset piece and this whole, like, how do we get in our own way? And then the strategy. Because I can be like, oh, just like go out there and do it. But if there's some limiting belief of like, what if I like let go of trying to get it right? And instead just showed up being of service to the people that are in the room. So with my intention, sometimes like my intention is for people to leave feeling moved, energized, excited, like reconnected to who they are. That's my intention. So that everything I do is woven through that intention. So the content that I'm delivering, the activities and exercises I'm doing are all grounded in that intention. And that anytime we kind of like feel that we're like losing ourselves or losing like that confidence, it's like coming back like, okay, what is my intention? Why am I here? These people are here. They showed up for themselves. I want to show up for them. I want to give them everything I have. And to know like, okay, worst case scenario, you mess up, you forget what you were going to say, or, you know, then you just say like, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Like, turn to your neighbor and share one thing you've learned so far. So you like come up with things where, you know, even if you kind of lose track, that you have some tools in your back pocket, and those are going to come with time. I feel like. So any thoughts, questions before I keep going and just talking? Because I want this to like be helpful for all of you. So is there anything I'm saying that's landing, or questions that are coming up from what I'm saying? You good, April?
It's a good reminder, you know. It's like I feel like I've been in a place where I've just been doing nonstop like crazy. I don't even have time to think. And then but all of that makes sense, because I think it's once you take that first step, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, whatever, I'll do it again. And even the one workshop that I did back in April, I did a webinar first, and then I did 2 workshops. The webinar, I was so scripted, and I had to read. I basically read because I didn't have to look at people. And then the second time I was still like clinging onto my notes. And by the third time I'm like, whatever, I've got tiny little note cards. So it's almost just go out there and do it. And if nobody shows up, then just practice anyways, and don't worry about that, and just take the action, and then you can learn from there what to do. So.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, Nike is onto something with this whole like just do it thing. And that sounds so like cliche, but it's like, just do the damn thing. And like, I mean, and coming up with ways to help you move forward and not get stuck in that, like, where am I going with like the getting it right piece? Or like you were saying, Mary, with how do I know how long to do this exercise for? Or, you know, do I get them in pairs? Do I get them in groups of 3? Do I get them in groups of 4? Do I have them go around in a circle and share? And you try it all and you figure out what works. And that's learning to trust yourself as being intuitive. Like, facilitation to me is really reading the energy in the room, you know, and like sometimes people aren't going to be complete with their conversation, and that's okay. You know, if 90% of the room is, and then like one group is gonna, you know, they could keep talking for hours, but your goal is to like move forward, move the conversation forward. And I think I see that in facilitators, they have a hard time. They feel like they're cutting people off, but it's like, hey, you know, like there's going to be content, there's going to be exercises, there's going to be activities where we're going to share, and I'm going to bring everybody back together, and we're going to keep moving forward. And it's not to cut you off. And my intention is that this is the beginning of the conversation and not the end of it. So, if you leave here tonight with more questions than answers, that's a good thing. But to be willing to, like I think with Emily saying in our lead call and our enrollment conversations, like, be the leader, like lead the workshop and facilitate. But you're really like holding space where people can feel comfortable that you are going to move the conversation forward and provide opportunities for that reflection. And I think just the willingness to try out different things. I love pair shares because they're quick and easy. Turn to a neighbor and share, where's one thing in your life right now where you're just totally in your own way. And then, each person will share for a minute or two. All right, everybody, maybe I'll play a song while they're talking. Song's over. I bring them back. And then does anyone have any insights from that they'd like to share with the bigger group? Because not everyone is comfortable. I think facilitation, it's easy for me. Like, I want to go around and hear from everyone. Like, go around, like, say your name and where are you getting in your own way? And then, like, if there's 10, 20 people there, it's like a half an hour later because people like talking about themselves. And I think that that's the value of doing the small groups, whether it's a pair share or groups of 3. Turn to your neighbor and share, what your blocks are around leadership, what your blocks are on eating healthy. Were there any themes that you noticed? Because the airtime is really valuable for people to just process their own experience. And as a facilitator, like, letting go of that, I need to hear everything. Like, I need to hear what everybody is saying. Like, I think I used to be really attached to that because, like, I want to know how people, but they need to know. I don't necessarily need to know, but they need to know. And, trying to do things like reflection journal, like just a 1-minute free write, like, here's how I'm getting in my own way right now. Or I've done a free write where, I talk about this idea of letting people, like, that you deserve what you desire. And I ask the question of, like, what do you really want? And so I'll give them a blank piece of paper. What I really want is a business that's thriving. What I really want is a house in the mountains. What I really want is, so I've done it as a journal reflection, but I've also done them as a pair share. So one person's like, so what do you really want? And the other person says, what I really want is, and then the other person says, well, what else do you really want? And then they keep going like that. So I think it's the willingness to just try different things and see what lands, see what works. People got really emotional when they actually had to say it out loud. And maybe that was the first time they ever said that out loud. And talking about active listening, how do we hold space for each other? But like making sure that people feel safe in that environment. And speaking of that, I always do, like, even if it's really short, a set of community agreements at the beginning of, like, what do we need as a community to feel like you can really go there? You can share these things that we don't often have the spaces or the places to really talk about, like, what you really want. And this is a space of possibility, not of just mediocrity, because we live in the world of mediocrity. So, like, when I ask you what you really want, I don't want you to say, I just want to make rent. I want you to say, like, I want a freaking house in the mountains and in Hawaii, and I want to build a business. Like, I don't even care if you don't think that's possible. Like, we're throwing logic out the window, right? And so I think being willing to, whatever you're doing it with conviction too, instead of being like, so I have this, like, exercise. I don't know. I've never really done it before, but if you just, like, want to turn to your neighbor and, like, do this thing, like, whatever you choose to do, just, like, do it and have really clear instruction. Turn to your partner. You each are going to have a minute or two to share. Halfway through, I'll just make sure that you switch and then come back. I know that April, you might have to bounce, but
yeah.
Any
nugget on my lips now.
Do you want to share a nugget with everybody? What's a nugget, a takeaway, something that you're walking away with today?
I don't know. I think because I'm not necessarily thinking about workshops right now, I've had this idea brewing for a while that I'm like, I really want to do it, but I don't know. I feel like I need to have some more background. And I think I feel empowered to try it. So, and I think just you putting out, like, hey, we're going to talk about this. I think I might just try to pilot it in the group and see what happens. So we'll see. You might see something from me.
Awesome. What are you going to pilot?
So I've been wanting to do this, something like this, where it's like, I wanted to title it this like Q&A with Coach A, right? Where I just spend an hour connecting with people and helping with them with their problems.
Awesome.
Right? Just no agenda, no, like I don't have to prepare any content. I'm just there, you know?
Love it.
So maybe I'll try it. We'll see, and just say like, okay, where can I help you today? Or do you need just some sunshine? Because I will give you the sunshine. Whatever.
How about I will do it.
I will do it.
And then set a date.
That will be the problem, figuring out the date. But maybe I'll do it soon, because I did write it down in I have a little area where I write my think tank notes. So I wrote it while you were talking.
All right. I love it. Make it happen, girl. Have an awesome interview. Rock it out.
Yes.
It's
I will
gonna be
talk to you
great.
later. Bye, guys.
Yes. Thanks for joining us, April.
All right, see you later.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Sophie, Mary, questions, thoughts, comments, concerns. What you got? For you?
The biggest takeaway for me so far is the thing about if the biggest fear comes true, it's not that bad.
Right.
And like really imagining that I think I really get terrified about losing my train of thought in front of people. But I would totally just do basically what you said.
Yeah.
We said, and it would be fine. And it would just be a really authentic moment.
Yeah. And it would just make you human. And that's like people, the thing about it too is everybody there wants you to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're rooting for you. They're not like, you're not bringing people into that space and they're like, I really want her to fail right now, or I really want her to mess up. And, you know, like that talk that I gave in front of 600 people, I lost my voice the day before. So I was drinking like so much tea, like on stage, I walked out drinking tea, dancing, of course. And then I was like, raise your hand if you like tea. And they were all like, woo! I was like, oh, this is going to be a great audience, because like, I just said, do you like tea? And they were excited. Right. So it's like no one people in the room like want to see you succeed. And like, that when you mess up, they're not going to be like, see, I knew she was not really going to be good at this or something. Like they want to, you know, help you. And knowing that, like the worst fear, the worst case scenario isn't as bad as we make it. And the blog post that I wrote 2 years ago, I read, it was like, it's actually our fear of failure that's worse than failure itself.
Yes.
Because like if we fail, we move forward. And I did this leadership training last week, and that was one of the leadership principles was move forward. That was probably one of my biggest takeaways is this like, because I'm like, when I make a mistake, I'm like my worst critic, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. And like, I mean, I sent out a newsletter to 170 people yesterday and it had a typo in the subject line. And I was like, damn it. But, you know, I was like, at least I did it. How many people are sitting around saying like, I want to do a workshop or I want to help people, but they're just like, but what if I mess up? What if I make mistakes? And then like thinking about, what's the worst thing that can happen, and trusting yourself that even if that does happen, even if you do lose your train of thought, even if activity or exercise doesn't go as well as you thought, that you can handle it. And then it's not that bad, really. Like I always say, one of my favorite lines is, it's not a kidney in a cooler. Like we are doing open heart surgery, you know, like it's going to be okay. And that might be someone's biggest takeaway. You know, and maybe in that moment you say, what is something that you really want to do? And what's stopping you from doing it? Because what was stopping me before was the fear of messing up. And here I messed up. And guess what? I'm still like, my heart's still beating. I'm still alive. And it's not that bad. So what is it that you really want to do? And how can I help support you moving forward? Right. So you can even spin it back on them and really have it be like a teachable moment and being real and being vulnerable. And that's when people are like, damn, like I like her because she's real. Like people want that like authenticity. They don't want a canned programmed thing. And that's why like the art of facilitation is so fun, is because you really do get to work with the energy of the room, the group, and, you know, kind of flowing with it. And the thing, like you were saying, it's what I find for me is I feel like I try to jam a lot of content in. And really, like if you have a couple powerful exercises with a couple really sweet nuggets, they're going to get more out of them, like interacting with each other than you just talking at them. So if those parts are more challenging or maybe just even not as fun, like I don't like talking as much as I do facilitating.
Mm-hmm.
And so my goal is to bring the wisdom of the group out. Like I always say, like, you already know what you know. My goal is to bring that to the surface and help you realize what you already, like, what's already inside of you. There's nothing else that you need that you don't already have. It's just we need to unpack it and uncover it because we hide it.
Mm-hmm.
So focusing on your strengths, and if you enjoy that facilitation element, to do more of that, and then to find, like, to connect their thoughts and ideas to your content and to the concepts you want to present.
Yeah, thanks for that. And like going back to kind of what I asked in the beginning, like, because I do feel more comfortable with the facilitation. The bit where I'm kind of presenting more is where I get overwhelmed on how many things I could do, like could say.
Yes.
What's your like best strategy for kind of simplifying and deciding which few things you're going to share of all the things you possibly could?
That's a good question. Because like, and I keep coming back to like my little workshop, like 3 keys to getting out of your own damn way. I'm like, I don't know what the 3 keys are really. I just I think that's the trusting myself part. In it's a fine line between having a plan, being willing to go off the plan, and come back to the plan. So sometimes what I do is I sit down and I just do a free write of like, okay, how to get out of your own damn way. And maybe even just doing like for like recently, it's kind of like saying, instead of what's your favorite book, it's like, what's your most recent favorite book? You know, like what the key pieces are for you that are resonating with you right now. And doing a free write, and then kind of being like, well, what are the themes? What are the ideas that keep surfacing for me? What do I keep thinking about, reading about, talking about? Like, going back to Emily, it's like, what is the thing that's like the easiest for you to talk about? Like, if we were going to meet for coffee and, have a conversation, what would you want me to know? And thinking about it that way. And then like, the thing is, I mean, for me, and I struggle with this a lot, whatever I choose, like, let that be the thing I choose. And because sometimes I say it without conviction because it's not everything. And I doubt, like, I second guess myself, like my kryptonite, it's second guessing myself and self-doubt. Those are my 2 biggest like things that stop me. And so knowing that whatever I share is going to be of service, it's going to be of value because I've set that intention. I'm like, and it's also recognizing like how powerful our communication is. In this leadership training I just did, and you probably know these stats, right? 55% of our communication is in our body language. It's in like what we're doing and how we're presenting that information. 38% is in our tonality. So am I just like flatlined? Or is there energy? Do I go up? Do I go down? Do I play music and like get really serious and say, like, I want you to write a letter to to yourself a year from now about where you are, what you've accomplished, what you've achieved. And I play some like epic, like song. But so I don't have to be like this all the time, but I can like let stuff in. To people. So how you're saying it, and then 7% is actually what you say. And that's the line that I love every time I get stuck or stopped. I say, people won't remember what I said or what I did, but they'll never forget the way I made them feel. And that's why that intention at the beginning, like setting that intention, and you can like share that with the group. Like, you don't have to keep that to yourself. Like, my intention for you tonight is for you to walk away feeling moved, inspired, and reconnected to who you are and what you really want. That is what we are up to tonight. So I want you to show up for yourself, get what you need, participate fully, and like engage in this experience, because the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And I really want to create a container of possibility. How does that sound? Thumbs up, instead of mediocrity, because we already have enough of that in our lives. And so it's getting over like the saying the right thing, but saying like whatever you're saying to say it with conviction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why talking about stuff that is resonating with you right now is so important. And like, what are the 3 keys right now? Like, they might change tomorrow. I might read a book and they might be different. But like right now in this moment, here's what I think is going to be the most helpful for you.
So can I ask something like very related to that?
Yeah.
That I think is probably based in self-doubt, but how it manifests is I worry about people in the room having different levels of experience and knowledge.
Yeah.
And how to choose like who to direct it at based on that.
I love that. Awesome question. And I love this because I do social justice and diversity work. So I just did a day-long leadership training. And at the beginning of that stuff, I oftentimes say, like, some of you have never had a conversation about privilege ever. Like, maybe that was the first time you've ever heard that word, never talked about diversity. And some of you, like, probably, could write a dissertation on it. And let's acknowledge the variety of experience in the room. So I think anytime you're concerned about something, I think it's just like naming it. A lot of, like, some of you have been doing personal development work for years. You've read Brene Brown, you've watched all the TED Talks. And some of you have, like, this is your first taste of really stepping into your power, really believing in yourself. Maybe this is your first step. And we're all at somewhere on that spectrum. And let's just not make anybody wrong for being anywhere. So maybe there's stuff you've heard before that I'm going to say. Great. I'm just going to reinforce that. Maybe there's stuff you haven't heard. And if I say a word or a concept that doesn't make sense, I invite you to ask me about that. And so anytime there's a concern, I think just to name it and to, acknowledge that we're all at different stages on the journey. And, I did a leadership workshop on Wednesday that I was paid to do. And a week ago, I flew to Dallas to pay to go to a leadership training. And what I said to them was like, I'm always learning, and I can read Brene Brown's book 3 times and still get something out of it. I can watch the same TED Talk. So if this is, this is where I was going. So at the leadership training, Ryan, the facilitator, started out by saying the 3 most dangerous words in the English language are, I know that. And what, so how does I know that really close us off from, like, maybe we've heard this before, but maybe now is the time it's going to land. Maybe you've heard vulnerability is sexy over and over, but like now you really get like, oh, now I get what that means. I've heard it 8 times, but tonight it really landed with me because when we hear stuff at different points in our life, they connect to different pieces of our experience. So I invite you to show up with an open heart and an open mind to, like, learn something new. If you've been doing this work for a long time, if you've never, if this is like being in this room is out of your comfort zone and you are just on this journey, like, wherever you're at is perfect. So I like, and that's just an example of, like, anytime we're concerned, if we just, like, kind of name it, it takes the power away, or it takes the pressure off of you to speak to, like, the people that get it versus the people that don't versus the people that might, Is that helpful?
Yeah, super helpful. Thank you.
Right on. So we have 3 minutes left before this thing cuts out. So I'd love to hear, like, just nuggets or takeaways that you are walking away with just from our short time today. And we can totally continue the conversation. This was just a fun, like, okay, it's Friday, I'm going to, like, just do this thing. And I just wanted to put it out there. But I'd love to hear, what are you walking away with? And then maybe what's one action you're going to take as a result of what you've learned. Mary, do you want to go?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had to step away. I just got a kayak delivered.
Awesome! That's so fun.
My husband's unwrapping it. Okay, so I missed half. I'm sorry, but from the beginning, I really like how you said make it about the audience. Like, it's being stuck in, oh my God, am I gonna mess up? Am I gonna deliver? All that stuff is like, think about from their perspective. Like, what do they want out of it? I want that they feel comfortable and they get something. They learn something, some good nugget themselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Perfect. Sophie?
Yeah. So I think some of the things that I shared already that have touched me, but overall what it is like that I think I've been thinking like, oh, I'm going to be this workshop presenter, and then I've got this crowd who are these participants, and I was kind of dehumanizing all of us. And just remembering that when I go in there, I'm going to be a person sharing some stuff with some other people.
Yeah.
We're all there with good intentions. We all want to share stuff.
Totally.
They're going to have different levels of knowledge. Some people will even know more than me about even the things I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And we can just all be human together, and just I can share stuff and just be of service and create space for them to have realizations. And
totally.
So it's really grounding for me. Thank you.
I love that so much. And yeah, like to take, I think the most important thing is to take action, right? Like to do it anyway, because like I said, like even your worst workshop can change someone's life, and it's not even going to be that bad, because we're usually our own worst critic, and people are showing up, they're wanting you to succeed, and for you to just go out there and share your gift with the world and hold that space for people. So I'm happy to answer any questions in the Facebook group. It says less than a minute, so I just kind of want to have a nice like close to our time today if we get cut off. And thanks for showing up.
Thanks, Molly. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
All right, y'all.
Okay.
Until next time. Yep.
All right. Awesome.
All right. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.